So you go into your pastor's office with your pain over your relationship problem. It could be with your spouse, it could be with a parent, it could be with an adult child, a sibling, could be a confusing, complicated family dynamic. And you go in and you want to ask for prayer or you want to ask for advice. And you sit down and you start describing the problem with the other person, the problem of what's going on. And you're surprised because the answer that you get is basically, well, it takes two to tango, basically. It's kind of relationships are 50-50. You both have to do your part. And so the pastor will pray for you, and part of that prayer is, that you'll know what you need to do and that you'll do your part, and the other person will do their part, and you walk away kind of stunned, surprised, disappointed. You might feel kind of confused about, am I overreacting to this? Am I putting too much blame on the other person? Am I wrong to be this upset, to be this hurt, to be this bothered, to be this angry, to be this exhausted? Oh my gosh, I was thinking about maybe divorce or separation. We weren't going to be able to stay together. I just literally feel like I'm losing it. I can't handle this. I've tried and I've tried and I'm exhausted and I don't know what else to do, but I guess I'm a failure. I guess it is my fault. It is at least part my fault. I've got to go back and start working even harder at doing all the things right. If you're a wife, maybe you were told to submit. If you were a husband, maybe you were told to love more like Christ loves the church. If you were a child of a parent that you're having a problem with, you were told to honor your parent. If you were a sibling, you were told to just, love your sibling. Like, even if your sibling appears to be your enemy, you're supposed to love your sibling. And you're thinking, okay, I guess that's what I need to do. But you were given a false premise. You were given bad advice because what the pastor said is not true. Now, how can I possibly say that? How can I possibly say that the pastor told you something that's not true? Because all relationships problems are not 50-50. You are not to blame for every problem that you have in your relationship. Relationships, in my opinion, are 100% on both sides. Both people give, but hang on, I'm not putting even more on you. Both people need to give 100% of themselves to the relationship. Healthy relationships, both people give and receive love. Now, there's a time for you to be giving it and a time for you to receiving it. But if you're in a loving relationship, you're being loved in that relationship. It's two ways. And you're both giving everything you can and should to that other person. Now, not to the point of codependency, of course. You both respect and accept each other. It's not one person respecting and the other person not respecting. Both people respect each other. Both people give each other respect. Both people give each other acceptance. Both people have the ability to resolve problems. So they both put 100% of their effort into resolving conflict, into understanding the other person so that they can resolve conflict. Both people work hard at communicating clearly and honestly. And if they can't communicate clearly and honestly, then they will go and get some help to get better at that. Both of them have mutual concern for each other. They care about how what they do affects the other person. Both of them cooperate with each other. Now, sometimes one person will give in more because they don't really care that much. Maybe you don't care where you go eat dinner. You like all food. And the other person really does care what they eat for dinner. They don't like all food. Or maybe you like all movies, but your spouse doesn't like certain kinds of movies, So, you can give and take more with some of that specific, those specific decisions, specific situations. Both people will self-evaluate. look completely at themselves and identify, have the ability to be introspective and identify what is the problem with me? What is my part? What did I do? What am I doing wrong? What's not so good? So you got to be able to see the good and the bad about yourself. And you'll self-evaluate. You're not defensive. You're not, and if you are defensive, you recognize it and you say, I'm so sorry, I reacted defensively to that. Let me rethink that. Let me come back and let's have a conversation about it. Both are willing to work together. They're both take care of their own responsibilities. They will both see what is theirs to do, whether that's apologizing, whether that's recognizing a fault, whether that's doing the dishes, if that's your job, if it's going out to work, if it's taking care of the kids, if it's whatever it is, if it's doing the banking, keeping the books, paying the bills, you both are 100% responsible for your contracts or your agreement in the relationship of what you're supposed to do. And so you both care about making sure you do that. Now, that's a healthy relationship. That's what I mean by being 100% committed to the relationship. Now, here's where you start getting problems because oftentimes one person's 100% and doing everything they need to do, and the other person is not 100%. Maybe they're 50%. They're doing 50% of that, or maybe they're doing none of that because they're super dysfunctional and they're not caring about any of it. That's a problem. So when you look at responsibility for what's wrong in the relationship, you have to look at the problem separately, and you need to take that person's responsibility for a particular problem and let them own that. Now, if you've got a spouse that's got an addiction, 100% of that responsibility for that addiction is that spouse's problem, that parent's problem, that sibling's problem. So if that's where a lot of the dysfunction and the problems coming from, if you go to the pastor or somebody and you say, my spouse is drinking and is drunk and is not getting to work, or my parent is drinking when I have the grandchild around them, when they're taking care of them, or when they come to my house they bring their alcohol, that person is 100% responsible for that problem, for that choice. Now, is there nothing you can do? Of course not. You have boundaries, you have speaking your truth, you can decide how you want to handle it. But in terms of being responsible for that problem, you are not. Now, you can be responsible for how you respond to it, and you can do that in a wise way or an unwise way. You can ignore your responsibility to respond to that, and it will continue. So you've got to look at whatever the problem is. If you're trying to communicate and resolve issues in your marriage, but your spouse is defensive and angry and shutting down and stonewalling you, that responsibility goes to that spouse, goes to that parent, goes to that sibling. If you are coming with intensity and attack, then you know what? That belongs to you. And the other person is also defensive and reacting, then maybe both of you own the responsibility for not being able to resolve conflict in your relationship. But you've got to be specific about the particular issue, particular problem, and that person's reactions, and give that person responsibility. We cannot make in complicated relationship dynamics, and the more dysfunctional we get, the more problems we have, the more issues that there are operating that are unhealthy in the relationship, the more difficult it gets to do this. But just recognizing that oftentimes in the relationship, yeah, you've got problems out here. You've got responsibility for how you interact, how you react to the main problem, maybe the person's drinking or the person's abuse, but you're not responsible for that main problem. And you can't do a whole lot with fixing the relationship until the main problem is dealt with. So you've got to be careful not to take on too much blame even if other people don't understand, that relationships are not 50-50. Relationship responsibility for relationship problems are rarely 50-50. There is often more responsibility, or sometimes, as I said, 100% responsibility for a particular problem. And keeping that in mind, we can have a better idea about how to deal with those problems and what are our options for potentially getting the change that we need. Maybe it isn't by taking on responsibility for the problem. Maybe it's taking on responsibility for making the choice that we need to make in response to the fact that the problem is there. So this is just a very small subset of issues that are things that you need to deal with in dysfunctional relationships. I hope that you'll look to my website for my courses and my books, and also look at more videos and podcasts, because they'll give you just tons of tips. So God bless you, and thank you for listening and watching.